Number 23. Oh, we still got 17 more of these to go, man. I can do this all night. In 2002, the United States had a trade deficit in advanced technology products of $16 billion with the rest of the world. In 2010, that number skyrocketed to $82 billion. We are not the head, we are definitely the tail. Can we borrow this? Can we borrow that? We will be your slave. Manufacturing employment in the U.S. computer industry was actually lower in 2010 than it was in 1975. Number 25. Since 2001, over 42,000 manufacturing facilities in the United States have been closed. Number 26. There were more manufacturing jobs in the United States in 1950 than there are today. I don't know why you put that one in. That one's obvious. Number 27. Since the year 2000, we have lost approximately 10% of our middle-class jobs. In the year 2000, there were about 72 million middle-class jobs in the United States. But today, there are only about 65 million middle-class jobs. Meanwhile, our population has gotten significantly larger. So don't think that's a little drop-off, because it's not. It's huge. When you adjust wages for inflation, middle-class workers in the United States make less money today than they did back in 1971. One recent survey found that 9 out of 10 U.S. workers do not expect their wages to keep up with soaring food prices and soaring gas prices over the next 12 months. Only the top 5% of U.S. households have earned enough additional income to match the rise in housing costs since 1975. Number 31. 1 out of every 6 elderly Americans now lives below the federal poverty line. Number 32. According to one recent study, approximately 21% of all children in the United States were living below poverty line in 2010. Number 33. Back in 1965, only 1 out of every 50 Americans was on Medicaid. Listen to this. Today, 1 out of every 6 on Medicaid. Government health care, if you don't know what that is, because you can't afford insurance and you have no job. As 2007 began, there were 26 million Americans on food stamps. Today, there are more than 44 million Americans on food stamps, which is an all-time record. What are you going to do when those food stamps go bye-bye? Some of these people are just on food stamps because they don't want to because they choose to be on food stamps because they're lazy. But there are also those that rely on the food stamps because they can't find work. But they're not preparing with those food stamps. So in the long term, they're going to be in trouble as well. Because the food stamps, the WIC, I am telling you right now, it is going to go bye-bye. It is going to go away. Number 35. Today, 1 out of every 4 American children is on food stamps. Number 36. 59% of all Americans now receive money from the federal government in one form or another. 59%. Unbelievable. The number of Americans that are going to food pantries and soup kitchens has increased by 46% since 2006. In the United States today, the richest 1% of all Americans have a greater net worth than the bottom 90% combined. According to Moody's Analytics, the wealthiest 5% of all households in the United States now account for approximately 37% of all consumer spending. And number 40, the poorest 50% of all Americans collectively own just 2.5% of all the wealth in the United States. The cold hard reality of the matter is that the United States is experiencing a long-term economic decline. Every single day, more American families fall out of the middle class and into poverty. There are millions of American families out there tonight that are just barely hanging on by their fingernails. More Americans than ever are constantly borrowing more money just to stay afloat, even as rampant unemployment plagues this nation, and even as wages remain stagnant. Middle-class Americans are increasing their use of credit. A CNBC article noted the increase in consumer borrowing that we have seen recently, and it states, and I quote, "The Federal Reserve says consumer borrowing rose $5.1 billion following a revised gain of $5.7 billion in April. Borrowing in the category that covers credit cards increased, as did borrowing in the category for auto and student loans. It is very hard to live the American dream without going into huge amounts of debt these days, but for an increasing number of Americans, the American dream is just a distant memory. Tonight there are large numbers of people living in the tunnels under the city of Las Vegas. As the wealthy live the high life in the casinos and hotels above them, an increasing number of desperate tunnel people are attempting to carve out an existence in the 200-mile-long labyrinth of tunnels that stretches beneath Vegas. It is a nightmarish environment, but it is all those people have left. Don't look down on them, because you never know who might be next. If you lost your current job, how long would you be able to survive? Unfortunately, as bad as things are now, the reality is that this is just the beginning. You ain't seen nothing yet. Do what you can to make sure that you and your family are not totally wiped out by the next wave of the economic collapse." If this kind of stuff happens to you, where is your heart going to be with God? Because He's the only one that's going to be able to provide for you, and He will if you truly love Him and have faith in Him. Alright. You guys want to hear more? I got one more I want to share with you. Will 2012 be the year that we see mass starvation in Africa? 12 signs that the world is running out of food. Alright. I will continue in the next session. Again, I am reading these two articles because this really seems to fit the bill of what I read to you. Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 58. Stay tuned for the next session.